Why are you even here? That's what she whispered to me, smiling, not at me, but at him. Everyone else at the table was laughing at a joke I didn't hear because I was still frozen in that moment. Her hand was on his arm. Her wine glass was tilted toward his. My seat felt like an accident. A leftover chair someone forgot to remove. The restaurant was too expensive for a Friday night, especially for someone who was supposedly unemployed. That's what she told him I was casually weeks ago, like it wasn't even a lie, just a joke that no one would ever fact-check. But tonight was different. Tonight, he made it public. You know, if I had your free time, he said, raising his glass toward me like a toast, I'd probably spend it learning a new skill, like how to be useful. More laughter. Then silence. Then her laugh, the one I hadn't heard in months. She didn't even glance at me. Not once. I watched her turn, whisper something in his ear. He nodded. Her fingertips lingered on his wrist. My breath caught somewhere between disbelief and clarity. That man, Nolan, worked for me. Not in the way he thought. On paper, he answered to some mid-tier manager at a company he thought was run by strangers. But the company was mine, built from scratch, hidden from my wife, from my friends, from anyone who ever looked at me and saw nothing but some guy figuring life out. What none of them knew, what no one at that table suspected, was that they all worked for me, indirectly or directly. Every smug face, every forced chuckle. They were all cashing checks I signed, and I had just decided to stop signing them. But it wasn't about the money. That night, after the fake smiles and the cruel laughter, she leaned close to me in the car. Her tone was soft, almost sweet. I didn't mean it like that, she said, eyes still glowing from the wine and his attention. You're just lost, that's all. It's not your fault. I didn't reply. I stared at the dashboard clock. 10:42 p.m. The exact minute I realized she wasn't just embarrassed by me. She was rooting against me. And it was already too late to warn her what was coming. Because while she was busy rehearsing her exit, I'd already locked the doors behind her. She didn't come home that night. That was the first time in our marriage she hadn't even texted. No, running late. No, staying over with the girls. No excuse. Just silence. Cold and complete. The house was still warm from the day. It held her perfume in the hallway like she was still there. Her coat was on the hook. Her shoes were beside mine, facing inward like they always were. But the feeling of her being gone was too loud to ignore. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I sat in the kitchen, didn't turn the lights on, to stare at the laptop she left open on the table. A half-written email glowed on the screen. I didn't touch anything, didn't scroll, but I read the subject line. If he signs it, we can move forward. She hadn't sent it. She hadn't even deleted the draft. At first, I thought it was work-related, some contract maybe. But the body of the message was another story entirely. She'd written it to someone named Avery, and it started with, "He's too emotionally weak to suspect anything." That line hit me harder than any affair ever could. She didn't pity me. She didn't fear me. She calculated me, like I was an obstacle to be managed, not a person to be loved. I should have stopped reading. I didn't. The message detailed more than I was ready for. Not just about Nolan, the guy from dinner, but about my business, my ownership, my holdings. She was helping someone piece together my structure, bit by bit, the kind of information that wasn't public, the kind I never even shared with her. And then I realized she hadn't found it. She had been told. Someone had been feeding her my business architecture. Someone close. And considering Nolan worked under a shell subsidiary, he would never have seen that side, unless she had access through someone else. Someone I trusted. I shut the laptop. Slowly. Deliberately. I didn't yell. I didn't rage. I didn't even pour a drink. I made a call. Elias, my silent partner, the only other person with keys to the back end, answered on the second ring. I asked him one question. Have you ever mentioned our structure to anyone? He said no, but his voice cracked just a little. Not enough for most people to notice. But I'm not most people. Why, he asked. I didn't answer. I hung up. Then I sat still for almost an hour, letting the quiet wrap around me like armor. That night wasn't about betrayal anymore. It was about clarity, because now I understood. She didn't marry me for who I was. She married me for who she could manipulate me into becoming. But the man she thought she could control, he died the moment she laughed at me in that restaurant. The version of me sitting in that dark kitchen, the one now staring at her wedding ring left on the sink, was building something much colder, much more calculated. She just didn't know it yet. The next morning, I didn't ask her where she'd been. She walked into the kitchen wearing a hoodie that wasn't hers, too large, dark blue, with a logo from a gym she never went to. Her hair was still damp, like she'd showered somewhere else. She didn't say good morning. She just reached for the orange juice, avoiding eye contact like it physically hurt. "Go and be gone most of the day," she muttered. "Lots of errands." I nodded. That was it. No fight. No questions. I just let her leave, because I already had what I needed. I didn't sleep much that night. Instead, I started tracing digital footprints. Not hers, mine. I went back through our joint statements. At first, everything looked fine. Grocery runs, Amazon purchases, the occasional hair appointment or dinner with the girls. But then I noticed something I hadn't seen before. An auto transfer every Friday night. Same time, same amount. Always from one of my old accounts, the one she had accessed when we first got married. The name on the receiving end? Hollow Tree Investments. It didn't ring any bells. So I did what anyone with decent tech instincts would do. I spoofed the login attempt, routed it through a decoy VPN, and guessed the security questions. She'd never changed them. Still used my birthday as the fallback pin. Well, I found made my hands go cold. The account wasn't some dummy holding spot. It was real, active, with over $82,000 in it. Pulled in small, careful increments over a span of 14 months. Hidden in plain sight, labeled as savings for emergencies. Only, there were no withdrawals for emergencies. Not one. What there were, though, were flight confirmations. A deposit to a private rental on the coast of Maine. Payments labeled legal consultation. And strangest of all, a monthly subscription to a service I'd never heard of, Premise. I clicked the link. It wasn't a shopping site or streaming app. It was encrypted, corporate-level backend. Invitation only. I was locked out. But then I remembered something. A few years ago, she'd accidentally used my work email to sign up for a spa day promo. That inbox still forwarded junk to a hidden folder I never bothered clearing. I dug into it. There it was. Welcome to Premise confirmation email. Sent 17 months ago, right after she started going to therapy. The message read, "Your private workspace is now live. Invite collaborators below." I sat still, rereading that line. Workspace? Collaborators? This wasn't therapy. It wasn't even financial planning. It was a shared environment, cloud-based, meant for long-term planning. Private, secure, hidden behind legal language and firewalls. And she had invited at least 2 others. One of them had a masked ID, but the email behind it, even partially redacted, was unmistakable. Avery.stonemills@-- .com. I finally had a last name. Stonemills. I searched it. Nothing too strange came up. An online business advisor who'd never been photographed. No linkage, no client list. Just a few vague mentions in startup forums. But there was one post on a private thread that gave me everything I needed. A former tech partner venting about Avery's ghost partnership scam. Apparently, Avery would pretend to consult couples on wealth planning. Instead, he'd charm one spouse into transferring assets while quietly setting up alternative ownership structures. It hit me like a freight train. She wasn't just planning to leave me. She was trying to erase me. On paper. In silence. Without me even noticing. I didn't feel anger. I felt something much worse. Stillness. The kind of bone-deep stillness that creeps in when you realize someone's been preparing your funeral. Not physically, but emotionally, professionally, financially, while kissing your forehead goodnight. But I had a plan now, because Avery wasn't the only one with hidden structures. And I wasn't the man she thought she'd buried quietly in the corner of our house. Not anymore. It took me 6 hours to break into the mirror. That's what I started calling her workspace on Premise, the mirror. Because that's exactly what it was. A digital version of our life, reflected and warped. It had everything. Income projections, trust templates, personal notes about my emotional state like she was profiling me for a case study. And the most chilling part? A full transition plan titled Phase 4, Asset Realignment. Estimated completion, 3 weeks. There were charts, names, checklists, even suggested talking points for when I would inevitably discover something. She had written out potential reactions and how to emotionally neutralize each one. I was reading a roadmap to my own erasure. Avery's messages were buried in a nested folder, but I got to them. Most were encrypted or in code. But he slipped once. Just once. A saved voice memo, possibly recorded by accident, where he said the words, "Get him to agree in writing. I'll take care of the rest." I played that message over and over. The casual arrogance in his voice felt rehearsed, like he'd said it to other women about other men. The game wasn't new to him, but I wasn't part of his usual script. I needed to know who this man really was. So I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in 4 years, Cal. Cal used to run security analytics for a fintech firm before he lost his license in a very public scandal. But he owed me. I helped his sister get out of a bad marriage when no one else would touch it. When I told him I needed deep intel on a guy named Avery Stonemills, he didn't ask why. 12 hours later, I had a dossier. Avery wasn't his real name. He was born Jonas Keller, arrested twice under sealed records. Once in Seattle, once in Phoenix, both for civil deception, charges that never went to trial. He'd changed his name in 2017 and rebranded as a consultant for emotionally undervalued high-net-worth spouses. That was his specialty. He preyed on resentment. Specifically, women who felt like their husbands were stagnant. Not abusive, not dangerous, just stuck, predictable, quiet. Like me, I wasn't the first. I was his sixth, but I'd be his last. I created a file. One document, not a bombshell, just a small, dangerous breadcrumb. A forged outline for an offshore relocation of assets that looked both legitimate and panicked. It read like I'd discovered something I wasn't supposed to and was now trying to hide money fast. Then I did the most terrifying thing I've ever done. I opened her laptop again, waited until she was out for another of her therapy sessions, and I logged into Premise using her saved credentials. This time, I didn't just watch. I uploaded the file. 3 hours later, someone opened it. Not her. Him. Because it pinged back to an IP in Delaware registered to a holding firm called Virelia Group, a known shell farm for asset transfer fraud. That was Avery's central hub. I had him. Now I needed them all in one place. So I set a trap. A fake opportunity. A startup in crisis. At least, that's what the proposal said. I wrote a pitch about a new logistics AI model needing emergency transition leadership. Big money, big equity. It sounded exactly like the kind of last-minute buy-in opportunity someone like Avery would pounce on. I sent it to her from a dummy email, but I made it sound like it had accidentally come to me first. Subject line, might be a way out of this mess. No name. No detail. Just enough curiosity to activate her instincts. She replied in 6 minutes. Did you already contact him? That was all I needed. They were going to walk right into it. Every single one of them. But not at some fake office. Not at a boardroom. At our house. Because there's nothing more honest than what people say when they think the walls around them are the same as always. Warm, familiar, safe. But I had changed the house. Just like they changed me. I never liked the den. It always felt like a room pretending to be cozy. Too many throw pillows. Fake warmth. It was her space, really, filled with books she never read and candles that made me sneeze. But I picked it on purpose. That room made her feel in control, which meant she'd talk more freely. I spent 2 days turning it into something else. Behind one of the wall panels, the one with the crooked art piece she never noticed, I embedded a directional mic that linked directly to a cloud drive on my secure server. The kind that doesn't blink, doesn't beep, just listens. Then I laid out the trap. I left my phone face up on the table with the pitch deck open, barely visible. A stack of printed contracts nearby. Highlighted phrases like founder exit strategy and equity redistribution, placed just carelessly enough to suggest panic. In the top drawer, I left a burner phone recording video tucked beneath a pack of business cards. Then I left. I didn't go far. Just sat in my car down the street. Watched our driveway through binoculars like some washed-up PI in a crime drama. I didn't even know what I expected. At 4:47 p.m., she arrived. Alone. At first, I thought maybe she'd smelled the setup. But 15 minutes later, a black Mercedes pulled in behind her. I didn't recognize the plates. A man stepped out. Trim gray beard. Notia. Carried himself like he owned whatever he walked into. Avery. He didn't even knock. He walked in like it was his house. That part broke me a little. I watched the time tick by. 10 minutes. 20. Then I pulled up the live feed. Her voice was the first thing I heard. Nervous. Clipped. So we move before the 28th. Yes, he said. Merrill will sign if you push the right buttons. You'll frame it like it's temporary, just protection. He won't challenge you. He's not that type. She laughed. Softly. I can cry if I need to. He always folds when I cry. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went pale. Then came the part one didn't see coming. She said, he's not the man I'm married anymore. There's something off lately. Like he's watching me. I don't like it. Avery didn't hesitate. Do you want me to handle it? The silence after that was long. Too long. Then she whispered, not yet. Not no. Now don't be ridiculous. Just not yet. It took everything I had not to storm into that house and end it right there. But this wasn't about emotion anymore. This was about getting the full picture. And she wasn't done talking, because she started asking questions I hadn't anticipated. What if he finds out who really owns the Hollow Tree account? Avery chuckled. He won't. And even if he does, that's why we use Jonah's shell. There's no legal tie to you anymore. Just make sure he signs the power of attorney draft. Once it's done, we can vanish. Power of attorney. She wanted legal control over my decisions. That's when I knew. This wasn't just betrayal. This was annihilation. A silent erasure of me, one form, one signature at a time. And they were so sure I wouldn't resist. Because I was too quiet, too polite, too soft. They forgot one thing. Quiet doesn't mean weak. It means patient. And patience is exactly what I needed. Because the next move would be public. And irreversible. By sunrise, the file was already in 5 inboxes. Each one belonged to a woman connected to Avery's previous consulting operations. Women I tracked down through archived documents, sealed threads, and scraps of old blog comments buried in abandoned forums. One of them, a woman named Larissa Hodge, had once sued a shell firm tied to Jonas Keller. I found the court records. She lost the case. But now she had the audio, and the entire plan laid out, in Leah's voice, step by step. I didn't ask for help. I didn't ask them to speak out. I simply handed them what no one ever gave me. The truth, raw and unfiltered, before it could be buried beneath some carefully worded NDA and fake apology. Then I turned to the house. It was strange how familiar everything felt. The same hallways, the same framed photos, the smell of that cheap vanilla candle she always lit before guests arrived. The illusion was intact. Nothing looked broken, but everything was. I walked straight to her closet. Not her drawers. Not the jewelry box. The closet. Because behind her coats, far left corner, near the floor, was a wall safe. I had never touched it. She told me it was just for documents, birth certificates, that kind of thing. I trusted her. But I also knew she'd changed the passcode 2 years ago. After her miscarriage. She'd never talked about it. Just changed. Closed off. I thought it was grief. Maybe it was. Maybe not. But that night, I realized that's when she stopped seeing me as her partner and started treating me like a variable. I tried 6 combinations. The 7th was the day we met. It clicked open. Inside, it wasn't paperwork. It was photos. Printed ones. Glossy. Not recent. None of us. Avery, or Jonas, in a hotel room. With her. Over and over. Different cities. Different outfits. Same intimacy. Same sickening smirk. But there was more. Letters. Handwritten. From her. Some dated almost 5 years back. That's before I left my job. Before I built the company. Before she ever said she was losing patience with my lack of ambition. Before she pretended to be disappointed in the man I became. She had already been cheating before I even knew I was being watched. There was a small box too. Wooden. Velvet-lined inside. I opened it slowly. Inside was a flash drive, black, unmarked, and a pair of earrings I didn't recognize. I plugged the drive into my encrypted laptop and watched the contents unfold like a slow-motion car crash. Video files. folders labeled by city names. Each one showed her and Avery in different apartments, Airbnb homes, even one that looked like our own bedroom, except I wasn't in the bed. I didn't finish watching them. I didn't need to. There was a final file, a scanned document. My signature, forged, on a power of attorney form, dated 3 months earlier, with a notary's seal I didn't recognize. I sat there for 10 full minutes, just staring at the screen. It wasn't sadness anymore. It wasn't betrayal. It was something colder, disassociation, like I had become a witness to someone else's collapse. I wasn't mourning what I lost. I was dissecting what I never truly had. That's when I called Elias, the only man in my company who knew everything. I told him, I need you to transfer all senior ownership voting rights. Temporarily. Backdate it to January. Use clause 17B. There was a pause. Then his voice, tight with understanding. You're pulling the trigger? No, I said. I already did. Because earlier that morning, before I sent the files, I triggered something else. A full buyback clause on Avery's firm. It was buried in an old merger agreement, masked under a different entity. But I'd structured the whole thing with one fail-safe. If his firm became involved in a conflict of interest, especially fraud, it would revert to me, meaning I now owned Avery's entire business. On paper. And tomorrow morning, he'd find out. But not before Leah did. Because I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to stand there, silent, unreadable, while her world collapsed inward from the weight of her own decisions. She didn't check the news that morning. She was too busy shouting at the bank on speakerphone, pacing barefoot across the tile floor with her hair still tangled from sleep. I sat in the car across the street, parked just close enough to hear everything through the open second-story window. Her voice cracked when I told her, again, that the funds in Hollow Tree Investments were under temporary administrative hold pending fraud investigation. She cursed, blamed the system, blamed technical glitches. Never once did she say my name, which told me everything. She still didn't know it was me. She thought the walls were crumbling on their own. At 9:12 a.m., her phone buzzed once. A single text. I couldn't see what it said, but I didn't need to. She ran upstairs fast, like she was about to throw up. A minute later, she emerged fully dressed, panic disguised as efficiency. Purse slung tight to her shoulder. No muck-up, just drive. That same cold urgency she used when talking to lawyers or hiding purchases from me. I watched her pull away in her car, unaware of what waited back at the house. I timed it carefully. At 9:30 sharp, he arrived. Not Avery, not Elias. A man named Malcolm Hodge, Larissa's older brother, ex-military, now running a security consultancy firm in Colorado. He had no connection to me directly. I found him through public records while researching Larissa's old court case. I didn't contact him myself. I didn't need to. She did. After receiving the file, I sent her. I saw it in the footage from my driveway camera later. How calm he looked when he walked up the steps. How deliberate. He knocked once, then waited. He had a messenger bag over his shoulder and a manila envelope in hand. No logo. No markings. Leo wasn't home, of course. So he waited. He leaned against the door frame like he'd done it 1,000 times, arms folded, sunglasses on, not in a hurry. It was almost peaceful. When she finally returned, just after 10:15, she froze when she saw him standing there. They exchanged words. Brief. Tense. Then he handed her the envelope. She didn't take it right away. But he didn't let go of it, either. She eventually accepted it with that fake smile she always used when things didn't go her way, but she still wanted control. The smile I used to mistake for patience. And then he said something. My security camera caught it, lips only, no audio. But I've gotten good at reading lips lately. He gave you a chance to walk away clean. You chose fire. Her face changed. It wasn't fear. It was recognition. She suddenly realized that everything, the frozen accounts, the email lockouts, the canceled property agreement in Maine, wasn't random. Wasn't the system. It was me. She stepped back, like she'd been physically hit. Malcolm didn't follow. He just turned, walked to his truck, and left like the job was finished. She stood in the doorway for a long time, holding the envelope like it was made of glass. She didn't go inside. She didn't sit down. She just stared at the street. Not at me, but at the space in front of her, like she was waiting for something to move, or maybe for someone to come explain how everything had unraveled so fast. But no one came, because I didn't need to show up anymore. The story was writing itself now. Every lie she planted was surfacing, tangled in knots only she could recognize. And what was inside that envelope would be the final twist of the knife. Inside were two things: a printed transcript of the audio from our den, and a simple note, written in thick black ink. You taught him how to disappear. He learned. She never went back to the car. She never looked at her phone again. She walked into the house like it was unfamiliar. And I swear, just before she closed the door, she looked around like she was afraid of being watched. For the first time, maybe ever, she knew what it felt like to live in someone else's script. 3 weeks passed. No contact. No messages. No lawyer letters. Just silence. The kind that doesn't fill a room but clears it. Like opening a window in a house that had smelled like old lies for too long. I had moved out the same day Malcolm delivered the envelope. Not loudly. Not dramatically. I didn't want her tears. I didn't need to see her regret. I just wanted to start again on my terms. Somewhere quiet. Clean. Somewhere I didn't have to explain myself every time I chose stillness over noise. I moved into a small cabin 2 hours north. Bought under a different name. Simple furniture. No echoes. I slept better there the first night than I had in 3 years. The world didn't stop. The company kept running. Clients were stronger than ever. I offered Elias full partnership. Told him he deserved it. He did. He always had. He tried to thank me, but I told him not to. Gratitude isn't something you say. It's how you live. And I wanted to live differently now. Then, one morning, something strange happened. A letter arrived. No return address. No signature. Just my name in her handwriting. Inside was a single photo. It was of us, from years ago, before any of this. She was laughing. I looked exhausted but happy. It wasn't a memory I'd forgotten, but it was one I hadn't thought about in a long time. Folded inside the envelope was a short note. You were the only thing in my life that was real. I see that now. I hope you find the peace I never gave you. I never deserved it. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just closed the envelope and tucked it into a box of things I wasn't sure I'd keep or throw away. Not because I was holding on, but because not everything has to be resolved to be over. The truth is, I didn't need closure. I already had peace. Every morning, I made coffee in silence. I watched the fog roll through the trees outside my porch window. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel small. I just felt free. Because the quiet I used to be mocked for, that quiet is where I rebuilt my life. And this time, no one will take that from me.